non-speaking autistic people have all the same need for social interaction, for meaningful relationship, for the sense of belonging. So the number one advice would be to presume competence. So if your child is 6, treat them like a 6-year-old. If they're 12, treat them like a 12-year-old. There's been this perception that autistic people are intelligent, but now we know they are socially and emotionally connected as well. They have empathy. It's not that they don't understand what's going on.
Not a disability, but a ability.
Hi, mummies and daddies. Welcome to Not a Disability but Ability podcast. I'm your host, Bonyoele Pile, a mother to a neurodivergent child who has autism. So today, as it's April, is at Autism Awareness Month. So we need to go out, guys. Let's advocate, let's bring awareness, and let's educate people about neurodivergency. Today, I am blessed and honored to have my two beautiful ladies in studio, a mother and a daughter, Zelda and Stephanie. I will just let Zelda please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your beautiful daughter.
Okay, so I'm Zelda, and this is my daughter Stephanie. She's 20 years old. She's my firstborn. We live here in Johannesburg in Fourways, and I'm married to my husband Gavin. We've been married for 28 years this year. And Stephanie has a younger sister, Cassidy, who's 18 months younger than she is.
Okay. And then please take us on a journey. First, discovering that Stephanie is different. What signs did you see, and what intervention did you take up until the day you got an official diagnosis, and what was the diagnosis?
Yeah, that's the journey, right? Yeah. That's the lifelong journey. So Steph developed beautifully as a baby, but a little bit slowly. So, but she was my firstborn. So I didn't really know.
Yeah.
It was hard to judge. My friends had boys, so they kept saying, you know, she's different. She's a girl. She sat a little bit late, didn't really speak much. And then by the time she was 18 months old, just as my other daughter was born, we started noticing she's not speaking. So the first thing we tested was hearing.
Okay.
So we thought maybe it's her ears. That came up fine. And then before she was 2, she'd been diagnosed by a pediatric developmental specialist that she's got pervasive developmental disorder, non-otherwise specific.
So what is that?
It's like an umbrella term for they don't know.
Okay.
So there's delays, they don't really know why. We found that time very frustrating. They suggested speech and OT. So by the time Steffi was 2, she was doing occupational therapy and speech therapy weekly. But what was frustrating is whenever we went for assessments, they would give us this long list of stuff she couldn't do. And they wouldn't give us any indication as to what she could do. So after another year of these type of assessments, I just got so frustrated because it wasn't helping me. I knew now what she was delayed with. It was just frustrating because nobody focused on what we could do. So really the only 2 options at that stage was speech therapy and occupational therapy.
True.
Then, like most autism moms, we dove into Google and I started researching.
Yeah.
And we tried a million things. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that have worked. I'm not going to speak about the things that didn't work.
Okay.
So what worked for us was a special diet. So when Steph was about 3.5, we saw a dietitian and we started with the gluten-free, casein-free diet.
Okay.
Gluten is the protein in some of your products like wheat, barley, oats, rye, and spelt. Casein is the protein in milk. cow's milk products. At first, she was on a very strict diet where we were cutting out soya, peanuts, eggs, and certain fruits as well. So you do an elimination diet where you cut everything out and then you start slowly introducing things. The dietitian promised me that in the end, Steph will eat more foods than she used to, because I'm sure you know autistic people can be very picky with what they eat.
Yeah.
And it was true. At first, it was hard because we were, on a very strict diet. But over time, she started eating more and more different things, different textures, and it kept going. By the time she was 10, she only started eating certain vegetables. Now she eats anything and everything.
Ooh, can't wait to get to that
It's
stage.
fabulous. But we had to break that addiction to the things that were bad for her. So what happens is if they eat food that gets stuck in their digestive system, like gluten, it leaks through into their gut and it actually makes them high. It acts like an opiate.
Is it?
And it affects their behavior, yeah. So diet played a big role. So she's still on a pretty good, healthy diet. And what I liked about changing the diet is that was something I could control. I go to the shop, I buy the food, I prep the food. I've got control over that. I couldn't control what happened at school. I couldn't control her behavior. And that's why I like the diet. So even though it takes effort, we really saw results with that. Another program we did do, which is we worked with a therapist in America online, was relationship development intervention. And it works about how a typical parent-child relationship, the parent is the coach and the child is the apprentice. But when there's autism, the child can't follow. So they teach you methods to pull them out and build relationship. And I really liked it because it worked on neurotypical development. So they would look at neurotypical kids and say, in those relationships, a parent would do this and a child would follow. So they were mimicking the real thing. Where some of the therapies, and I don't want to necessarily mention them, what they're asking those kids to do, you would not submit your neurotypical kid to 8 hours of sitting and doing trials.
True. 100%.
So why would I do that with my autistic daughter? And then, so she was in school, a special nursery school for kids with delayed speech. And then she went to a special needs school for 8 years. Problem there with someone like Steph, who is, let me just backtrack. We don't like to use the word nonverbal.
Okay.
I know it's common that people refer to nonverbal, but nonverbal means no language. Stephanie has language. She just can't speak.
Yes.
So we refer to her as a non-speaker.
Okay.
Non-speakers can be people who don't speak at all. They've got no verbalizing. They can be people with unreliable speech. A lot of autistic people will say stuff that they're not really wanting to say. They might talk about topics that they actually don't want to talk about all the time, but it's just what their bodies do. And then you get unreliable speakers, which is where Steffi falls, where sometimes she has language that's accurate, or sometimes get a word out, sometimes she won't. The cause of this, we now know, is apraxia. Apraxia is a disconnect between the brain and the body. So the brain knows exactly what she wants to do. The body is not responding. So now imagine this. You're sitting in a classroom. You've been doing grade 1 and grade 2 works for 8 years because you can't speak reliably to show them that you understand your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s. You can't write. Writing or drawing is such a fine motor skill. You can't control your body to draw what you wanted to draw or to write what you want to write. Now, there's no way for you to show the teacher
that you actually
that you
understand.
So year in and year out, they are teaching you 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 2 = 3. Meantime, she got this.
A long time ago.
She taught herself to read when she was 4. And yet she was sitting there doing the same work over and over. So what happened is as she got to her early teens, her behavior started getting worse and worse. So even though we'd done all this work with the diet, which really helped with behavior, and that suddenly at school her behavior was getting worse and worse and worse. And you know, as a mom, all you want is for your kid to be somewhere where they're happy. And clearly she was not happy.
Yes.
And that is when, like I said, I was on my Google searches and I found Spelling to Communicate, which is aimed specifically at the non-speaking community, the part of autism that's honestly the most vulnerable, the most underserved. And they had been going, it's an American program. A speech therapist brought it to South Africa in Pretoria. They had a training session where they trained some parents. So it had started sort of taking off in Pretoria a bit.
Okay.
And there was for the first time somebody in Joburg who advertised in her school newsletter that they're starting in Joburg. And I was desperate. The one mom in her testimony said, I'm not telling you what therapy you should or shouldn't do, but I'm telling you do this on top of whatever you do. Do Spelling to Communicate. So Steph went for her first session. And what they did for the first time ever, she didn't ask me any questions about her development, anything. She did an age-appropriate comprehension lesson with her. She read age-appropriate, she at the time was 14, piece of reading. She read it in a normal tone of voice, like you and I would read. Started asking her questions about it and had a board, not this, it's more of a stencil board with big letters on it, and started asking her to just point with a pencil to the answers. And she started doing it. And she would read another passage, just read it once, like you and I would read, not slow and
Yeah.
how they do it at school. And she would ask her a question, and she had to prompt her body, and she would start spelling the answer. So how the spelling works, it's a gross motor movement. So she'll hold a pencil, and they really just poke. So it's much easier for the apraxic bodies to learn how to do this. And then with time, they move to a smaller stencil where the whole alphabet's on the stencil. Then with time, they move on to laminate, which is what I've got here, where the full alphabet is on that. And with time, she can move on to a keyboard, where you'll hold the keyboard upright like this, and she'll start pointing to the letters. It's a slow process, but immediately I could see a change in Stephanie. Her behavior, some of her really bad behavior from that day was gone. The minute we started doing age-appropriate lessons with her, so grade 6 work, 6 to 7 work, the tantrum stopped, the meltdown stopped. So what we'd been seeing was utter frustration.
Yeah.
Imagine the trauma of being stuck in your body and unable to show people that I'm understanding this. So this was 2019. And what came after 2019?
COVID.
2020. So it was COVID. Fortunately, I had learned from up front. I'd said, I want to learn how to do this with her. This is not therapy. This is life. This is a life skill, right? She's not going to do, it's not like speech therapy where she goes once a week and then the rest of the week nothing happens. I wanted to learn how to do this. So it takes some time, but I'd learned how to do this with her. So during lockdown, I did lessons with her daily. And I started doing her online homework that she was getting from the special needs school. I started doing with her. And this kid was just getting the answers. And then I thought, no, let's skip grade 2 maths. Let's do grade 3 maths. Long division. She was doing it. We kept going. By the end of lockdown, we were doing grade 7 work.
So from grade 3 to grade 7
Yes, in a couple of months.
in a couple of months.
Then when the schools opened up again, we spoke to the school about it. We said, look, this is what happened. She's intelligent. She understands everything. She just needs to be able to communicate on the letterboard. Unfortunately, they were not equipped or willing to learn how to do this. So we had to start looking for another place. Now, keep in mind, she's 14. At this stage, it's 2020. She's 15 years old. She's never officially passed a grade in her life. I'm looking for schools. There's a school in Rivonia, Edu 360, and I know there's an autistic teacher there. So I phone and I explain the situation. And they said, look, all they can offer me is a 2-week trial period. So they gave us a 2-week trial. I went with her to work as her communication and regulation partner. That's the person who holds the board, the CRP. We got into class. Our first class ever that she's there is Mr. Emil Gous, who's now Dr. Emil Gous. He was her history teacher. Emil walks in and he says, hello, Stephanie, I'm autistic too. It's nice to meet you. What are you into? And I pick up the board, I know, and she spelled Harry Potter. And that was it. That's how it started. She started spelling, and we did the 2-week trial. She was doing geography for the first time in her life, history, maths, English, Afrikaans, all these things. I discovered she could do Afrikaans. So when she was a baby, I spoke to her Afrikaans for the first 2 years. Once we started speech therapy, they said, no, stick to one language. I'm going to spell now. And so then the teacher said, okay, the principal, they'll give her a spot. They wanted to put her into grade 8. I said, no, grade 9, because the class she was in were the grade 9s, and she liked it. So her first year of official school was grade 9. At the end of the year, I had to train up a CRP to go to school with her, because I wasn't going to do high school again. And she had a CRP who attends school with her, and we'll talk now. And she passed, the first grade she ever passed was grade 9. Since then, she's done her Cambridge external exams. We had to get approval for her to do it with a communication and regulation partner. We've had to go through a lot of red tape. But long story short, she's passed maths, science, English, Afrikaans, and business studies so far.
That is amazing.
This year, she's going to do an AS level. And if she can pass all the subjects, she can have a bachelor's pass.
Like, that is so amazing.
She
Let's
wants
hear
to
what she wants to say.
Yes, I had no way of showing people that I was intelligent. Okay. It was so frustrating doing the same boring work every year.
I can only imagine, more especially if you actually understand and you know, and someone is treating you like you don't understand. I think that is where maybe the frustration was more at, because you are trying to elevate yourself, but someone keeps suppressing you down. So, Stephanie, would you say that using the spelling board now has helped you a lot in terms of also expressing how you feel or your emotions when you are sad, happy, or angry?
Yes, it is still limited. Look at your board. It is still limited, but so much better than before.
Yeah. And then growing up, Stephanie, in your own understanding, in your own emotions, what was going through your mind or what was going through emotionally when you couldn't actually express how you felt?
The world did not make sense to me. I battled with sensory issues. Everything was overwhelming. To listen to others talk and I could not was traumatic.
I can imagine. Like going through that, not being able to actually alter a word while you understand them and they don't understand you, how frustrating and how empty sometimes she felt. But with this spelling board now, has that changed? Has that maybe now opened up more opportunities or the way you feel?
Yes, I can chat to my friends at school. Having friends is my greatest joy.
Yeah, that is so helpful. Now I'm just thinking, remember as I told you that I also have a child who is also autistic, and I'm trying to mirror what he might be going through Stephanie. So Stephanie is actually now, as much as I'm a host, but I'm a mom, giving me hope that actually my child will be okay, will be fine. Because those are one of the things that I was actually worried about. Will he ever be independent? Will he have friends? Will he be able to, because he's also non-speaking, will he be able to have a channel of communication? Because currently I'm the only one, and the father or immediate family who can understand what he is saying. So now hearing Stephanie's stories is actually giving me hope that he will be okay. He will be fine.
So the beauty of the age we're living in, right, is the internet. And we have access now to adult spellers worldwide who are communicating and telling us what their life experiences. And we can clearly learn from them that non-speaking autistic people have all the same need for social interaction, for meaningful relationship, for the sense of belonging. So that whole perception that autistic people want to be alone and they don't want to socialize and they don't have empathy. Oh my word.
Yeah, they love
the
saying
biggest
that.
lie ever. I mean, in the 80s, we believed autistic people couldn't understand emotions. Stephanie understands, but she won't look into someone's eyes for a long time because she sees everything. She sees all your emotions and it's overwhelming for her. So we know they want all the same things that a typical child or teenager would want. And it really helps us create environments now for them to meet and to connect and to fall in love and to find meaningful employment. So I think we're living in very exciting times for the autistic community because the paradigm's definitely shifting. For a long time, there's been this perception that autistic people are intelligent, but now we know they are socially and emotionally connected as well. They have empathy. It's not that they don't understand what's going on. They have all the same needs. They just need a safe space to be able to express that.
So would you say that through your journey raising Stephanie, as you're saying that you also have another daughter, were you maybe afraid that maybe the same thing that or the same condition that Stephanie has been passed on? Were you worried about the challenges that you were facing with Stephanie that now it's going to repeat itself?
So because my girls are so close in age, God had a bit of in his wisdom, we were pregnant before we were aware of the situation we were in. It certainly made us question whether we should have more kids. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Having a disabled child is very challenging, very, very challenging. Until we had the breakthrough, it was exceptionally challenging. So we were scared to have more kids. But I'm so grateful for my neurotypical daughter because for a couple of reasons. The one is to see how easy parenting can be, right? And just see how natural and easy the learning can happen. But also it forces you as a family to aim for more natural interactions. I think often what happens when families have only one special need kid, they will build the world around that kid. And I understand why. I fully understand why. I would have done the same. But it's not a sustainable lifestyle for going out into the world. as much as we're trying to change the world for our kids, essentially we have to adapt. And having another daughter who's neurotypical, we've had to do the normal things, go to the parties, go to the playgrounds, go to the fairs, sometimes we'd arrive and after half an hour we'd leave. But we were still always aiming for normal life, normal interaction, which benefited Stephanie because she wanted it. It's just her sensory cup was very full and she couldn't always handle it. But Stephanie loves new experiences. So autistic people are not keen on change, but it doesn't mean they don't love new experiences. She loved. So when we traveled, she loved traveling. We were nervous, right? But she was great on the plane. She's now been to Kenya with her CRP. They went for disability rights training there. It's fascinating. But what I did want to say, because you spoke about independence, what we're hearing from the autistic adults is that our concept of independence is that somebody can cope alone. They don't mind needing support. What they want is autonomy. So they don't necessarily want to be independent in their living. They need to be autonomous in making decisions. So they want a say. Nothing about us without us, right? Mm-hmm. So don't exclude them from the decision-making about how to live. They don't mind needing help with daily living. Yeah. They don't mind needing help with spelling or extra time or whatever. They just want their voices heard. So, even the thing about labels, right? Are you an autistic person or you're a person with autism, whatever? Stephanie says, I don't mind as long as they're speaking to me, as long as they're listening to me and they're engaging, right? Mm-hmm. So this is stuff that we didn't know. No. Mm-hmm. The neurotypicals have been presuming. Now we're learning. So this is interesting time. I mean, I've learned more from this kid than from anyone else.
Yeah. And then in terms of support, would you say that you have enough support, your surrounding? How is your support? Because I can imagine, as you're saying, that raising a child with a disability is very challenging, and the things that you need to try. I mean, we learn by virtue of elimination with us, because our kids cannot tell us that this doesn't work, or we need to actually facilitate and say, no, this doesn't work and stuff. So how is your support system?
Yes. So support-wise, we've been very fortunate that our families have been very understanding. I've now learned that in some communities it's not the case, that some of the older generation just will blame the parents for what's happening with the kids. Of course, that's complete nonsense, right? So family support is great for us. And then we've always been part of a church community. My husband and I are both Christians, we're believers. So that's been a great support system over the years. I had expectations of the school system giving us parents that we were going to connect with. That was not the case. I was surprised. I was so happy once she got to school. I thought, okay, now all the moms are on the same boat. We're going to be able to help each other. I didn't really find that, which is sad, right?
Very.
But there is a group called Parent Reality, which is for parents specifically, a support group that my husband and I go to once about a quarter, which has been very helpful to attend. So yeah, support, you need a support structure. Interesting how we over the years found friendships as well, where the kids need to be able to tolerate the differences. So the sort of lifelong friends that knew the kids from when they were young, those ones were a little bit easier. But now that Steph can communicate, it's much easier. It's amazing. Like she says, because she's now proven that she's intelligent, people are happy to engage with her.
Yeah.
So support and socializing has become easier. She says she has the opportunity to speak to psychologists now that she can communicate. So that's been one of the massive breakthroughs, right? Is that she can communicate and now she can access therapy.
Yeah.
There's obviously lots of trauma from the past that she can speak
now
about.
express and
Yes.
speak about, and the psychologists will actually understand, and they'll be able to go back and forth and actually have a meaningful conversation.
Yes. So we were in therapy yesterday. She'll speak like anyone else. I mean, it's the only thing is when she gets emotional, her body regulation goes off a bit and it becomes harder to spell. So sometimes when she's under a lot of pressure, even she can't get to the letterboard. But it's the same with us, right? Sometimes you're just so overwhelmed that you actually can't put something into words.
That is so true. So Stephanie, what do you inspire to be? How do you see your future?
I want to advocate for autism rights. Enough silence. Under it. Mm-hmm. Let's have our voices heard.
Yeah. So what, tell me, how does your day look like? How's your daily routine? Like when you wake up, what is the first thing that you do? And how does your daily routine look like?
I have a daily schedule. It gives me confidence. I go to school with my CRP. Under it, yeah. I go to gym or to aqua aerobics. And I listen to audiobooks. and I watch TV.
Okay. So it looks like you have a very proactive a routine. So the relationship you have with your little sister, since you are neurodivergent and she is neurotypical, how would you say that you guys find a balance within your relationship?
It has not been easy. She loves me. Mhm. She loves me, but we don't spend a lot of time together.
Okay. And then now, what advice would you give, you as a mom and Stephanie as a child who is autistic? What advice would you give to parents who are raising kids who are on a spectrum? So you'll tell me from the parents' point of view, and then Stephanie will tell me from the child who's actually autistic's point of view. Because sometimes we guess and we think we know how they actually want to be treated or how they want to be understood, because we think it works for them, only to find out that it actually is the total opposite. So what advice would you give to a mother or a parent or just someone who is a primary caregiver of a person living with autism?
Yeah. So the number one advice would be to presume competence. So if your child is 6, treat them like a 6-year-old. If they're 12, treat them like a 12-year-old. Often what we're seeing in the body is not necessarily what the mind is capable of. That would be number one. Number two is don't settle for easy routes or what people tell you. If your gut is telling you there's more to it, like my gut told me when she was young, there would be these moments which she would do things that was just so spot on. She was such a good character, judge of character, brilliant judge of character. Every now and then there would be this moment where she would get a word or something out that was so spot on. I was like, this kid is intelligent, you know. So if you have those feelings, don't ignore those. And then the third thing is definitely find a way for them to communicate reliably. So especially if they're unreliable speakers, it's hard because those kids are talking. But if they're talking nonsense or asking the same question a million times, that's not reliable speech. Look into ways of them finding a way to express themselves reliably. And if a therapy comes and they ask you to do something that you would not do with another kid, 8 hours a day for, I don't know, that's, listen to your motherly instinct and keep looking. Because there's definitely schools out there and therapies out there that will not ask you to do that. Because a lot of our autistic adults are now coming out talking about post-traumatic stress, and it was from certain therapies they were subjected to. And don't look for this miracle cure. There's no miracle cure, right? Everything you do is going to help a bit. Not one thing is going to solve every problem. So if you buy the book and it promises you the miracle cure, don't. It's not. Stephanie has told us that she's happily autistic. She will rather have her autistic mind and not be able to speak than be able to speak and have a neurotypical mind. That's how superior she believes their thinking are to us. She says, we've got no clue. So presume competence, find reliable ways to communicate, follow your gut, and don't settle for the mumbo jumbo. Okay, if it doesn't sit right with you, don't. The medicines and the things, don't. Do what works. Let's hear what she says. What do you think, Steph? Only listen to autistic voices. They are the experts.
They truly are the experts. So, what is one myth, Stephanie, you say that it's posed on people with autism? Like that you think this is total rubbish. There's nothing like that.
That we are naughty. And that we are stupid.
So, Mommy, tell me, what are your future hopes for Stephanie?
The $1,000,000 question.
You.
Because, I mean, if everything goes right, this will be our last year of school, right? So my hope is that Stephanie will find meaningful work where she's contributing to society in our understanding of autism, and can spread the word that parents can have hope, that it's not this dreadful disease, that there's no solutions or nothing positive about it. My hope for her is that she will have meaningful relationships, and that she can live as independently as is possible for her. She will have the support she needs, but the autonomy to make her decisions. I mean, it would be fabulous if we could get a chip implanted and she could communicate telepathically. So that would be fantastic, right? Where she could sit and look at the screen and everything comes up. But we're definitely going to pursue, once she's out of school now, working on the computer, on the keyboard. Because the beauty of the keyboard is that she can put spaces in between the words. At the moment, with this, there's no space. So I have to really concentrate very hard to know what she's spelling. And obviously it goes straight onto the computer and she can start writing her own pieces. So that's, I suppose, the dreams we have for all our kids, right? It's just to find her space in the world, to find her tribe, and to be as happy as she can be.
So, Stephanie, do you have any last words that you want to share with our viewers?
Yes.
You can go ahead.
Help your child find a school where they teach an age-appropriate curriculum.
Yeah, because usually they just see their condition and they never let them develop into their own age-appropriate phases. Okay, no,
And what do we have to lose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a 15-year-old sitting there who can't speak, why teach them the Three Little Pigs story if you could read them Lord of the Rings? What have you got to lose? Nothing.
Nothing. Like literally nothing.
Nothing.
Any last words from you, Mommy?
No, just thank you for what you're doing. And I think it's exciting times we're living in. I think artificial intelligence is going to help the disabled community. I think the internet can be a tool to really support them, bring them together, spreading knowledge like what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. We just have to keep changing the narrative that its disabilities are autism's not the disability. The way society deals with it is the disability, right?
Yeah.
So we need to change perceptions out there as much as we can.
True.
So good job, Mom.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for honoring the invite. I have learned a lot.
Good.
As you can see, the way the conversation was flowing, I didn't even look at any questions because everything was just flowing. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Stephanie. Please continue advocating. Please continue bringing the awareness and educating. Guys, as you can see, everything and anything, guys, it's possible. It's all up to you and how you perceive things. So that is it for today, Mummies and Daddies. Don't forget the book is out. Autism is My Superpower. DM me if you are interested in purchasing the book. And up until next time, just bye.